With the Unova Tour slowly approaching in Pokemon GO, it's time to start getting ready for this amazing event. For those of you that have never played a Pokemon GO Tour or GO Fest before, you're gonna have an entire weekend to play, which means 16 hours of insane spawns, raids, and bonuses. Now normally we do get an event ticket alongside the free bonuses, but this year it looks like we're gonna have that replaced with a Tour Pass and Tour Pass Deluxe. Since we know very little about this, it's difficult to say whether or not the Deluxe version is gonna be worth the price point. I'm going to have to further analyze it, so expect a video on that in the coming days, but for right now, let's cover everything you can start doing to get yourself ready for this upcoming event. So first of all, there's still plenty of time to go out there and grind out some gyms for some extra PokeCoins. Your main focus should be getting more bag space and more Pokemon storage. The more bag space you have, the more Pokeballs you can carry, which means less time restocking during the event. The more Pokemon storage you have, the less you have to transfer, and the more good Pokemon you can keep for trades after the event. Now for those of you out there who aren't free to play, or maybe you're mostly free to play, I would also recommend putting aside some money from your paycheck to get some PokeCoins for this event. 16 hours of potential grind time gets pretty crazy, and before you know it, you're gonna have to go through and clear out your Pokemon storage, or you might even run out of Pokeballs. Now if you can do this free to play, even better, but don't be afraid to spend some money to make your life easier and less chaotic during a big event like this. Trust me, you're gonna thank yourself later. Now assuming that you have the PokeCoins required, what premium items do you actually need for this event? So first of all, we're going to have special unknown incense spawns that spell out Unova according to the blog post. So if you're planning on walking, you're gonna be able to get a new spawn about every minute from your incense. These are going to last a normal duration of 1 hour, so they're not boosted or anything like that. But if you wanted to run them for the entire event, you're going to need 8 incense per day for a total of 16 over the course of the whole weekend. I believe incense are only 40 coins, so they're not really that expensive compared to some of the other items, and I definitely think they're going to help you out a lot throughout this event. Next up, let's talk about lure modules. So there was no mention of lure modules lasting longer during this event, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to drop some of these at popular grind spots throughout the day. This is basically going to result in more Pokemon spawning for everybody around you, and you can also make some progress towards the Platinum Picnicker medal as well. That being said though, there's probably better times to drop lure modules like during calm days where we get the 3-hour bonus for them, so if you don't want to drop them during this event, that's perfectly fine as well. Not a super big priority. Now following that, we have Lucky Eggs. So based on the Tour Pass description, it looks like we're going to have to complete milestones and collect Tour points in order to unlock better experience bonuses throughout the event. At Tier 4, we're going to unlock 3 times catch experience, but we don't know how difficult or how long it's going to take to actually get to that point. So keeping that in mind, it wouldn't be a bad idea to hold on to a few Lucky Eggs for when you unlock that final tier. And if you never end up getting to it, well, I guess you can just save your Lucky Eggs for another event. Next up, let's talk about incubators and super incubators, and the only time where I would actually recommend using a star piece during this event. So the only bonus that we seem to have gotten right out of the gate for this event is going to be 1/2 incubator distance. During GO Tour events, there are usually event-themed eggs, and oftentimes they feature the new shiny Pokemon being released. Now with that being said, there was no mention of boosted shiny rates during this event, so I wouldn't recommend overdoing it on the incubators, although for the shiny hunters out there who are watching this, I know that you're going to go hard. I mean, let's be honest here. So a good strategy would be to stockpile as many 10-kilometer eggs as possible, incubate all of them at the same time, and then drop a star piece right before they hatch. The Stardust gains are going to be amazing regardless of what you end up hatching. There's also going to be a hatch ticket for the Road to Unova Tour event, which will actually stack into the Global Unova Tour, and that is going to have a 2 times hatch Stardust bonus. So if you were planning on hatching a bunch of eggs during this event, I would strongly recommend getting that ticket. For most players out there, I probably wouldn't recommend this though. Next up, we have premium raid passes, essentially the green passes. So I would recommend at least 20 plus of these. Guys, we're gonna have so many amazing raid bosses coming back into rotation with their legacy movesets and the potential chance to get them shiny. This is by far one of the best times to raid in Pokemon GO. If you're not raiding during this event, any other time is probably going to be worse off. I'm just telling you that right now. Now for players who might have other responsibilities during the event weekend, there are going to be no limit on remote raid passes. That said though, these are significantly more expensive than the in-person green passes, but they're far more convenient. So you can use apps like PokeGenie to find raid lobbies, and you can also host these raids yourself from the in-person gym. So compared to previous events, I don't think the need for like more premium items is really necessary for this one. I think the main focus should definitely be the premium raid passes, like the green in-person passes. Those are going to be what you really want to stock up on, if anything. That and the incense. Next up, let's talk about the free items you want to have for this event. So first up, we have pineapple berries. I'd recommend about 25 of these. Now depending on your playstyle, you may want more or less, and after playing through enough events, I've kind of realized that I'm usually more focused on quick catching, and that also means not really using berries to save more time. The only time that I really use pineapple berries is to get candy on like a really rare Pokemon, and that doesn't happen that often. Not to mention, I'm also spinning Pokestops throughout the day, and I usually end up with more pineapple berries than I even started with. For an event with 16 hours of spawns, you're most likely going to get enough candy from quick catching everything, so I wouldn't really worry about this too much. I think 25 pineapple berries is more than enough. But if you're not going to be around any Pokestops throughout the day, you may want more of these. Next up we have Nana Berries. You're going to encounter plenty of aggressive Pokemon throughout the day, and so these will come in handy to make them stop attacking if they're being feisty. Once again, I recommend about 25. Now we also have Golden Raspberries, which I recommend about 50 plus. So these are going to give you the best catch rate in the game combined with excellent curveball throws. Keeping these on hand for Pokemon with like lower catch rates is really going to be helpful. If you're going to be raiding throughout the day as well, you're going to restock these, so you shouldn't have to worry about them too much. Sometimes we do get boosted catch rates for the raid Pokemon during events like this. I don't know if we're going to have that for this event. Honestly, I don't really expect it, so keeping that in mind, I would definitely recommend to go into this event with at least 50 on hand, if not more, depending on your bag space. Now with that being said, if you don't have any golden raspberries on hand, I would keep about 20 regular raspberries just to help you out with those difficult Pokemon. Now finally, in regards to the berries, we have silver pineapple berries. These should only be used on legendary Pokemon that you want to farm candy on. These have a pretty close catch rate to golden raspberries, and they also have an increased candy rate compared to regular pineapple berries. For example, the golden raspberry catch rate is going to be 2.5 times, the silver pineapple berry catch rate is going to be 1.8 times. Now for the pineapple berry, this is 2 times candy, but for the silver pineapple berry, it's going to be 2.33 times candy. So you get a little bit more. For reference here, I always save my silver pineapple berries for big events like this. It's pretty much the only time that I actually use them. Next up, we have max potions and max revives. So if you're going to be raiding a lot, you're going to want to have as many of these as possible. You can definitely get away with having less if you're going to be raiding in big groups, but for smaller groups, you definitely want to have more. Now, if you're having trouble getting more revives and potions, I would strongly recommend spinning more gym stops, especially ones where you actually gotten gold gym badges at. Now finally, let's go over Pokeballs, Ultra Balls, and Great Balls, and yes, I said it in that order for a reason. So you want to have a lot of Pokeballs. If you're going to be using an Autocatcher throughout the day, you basically just need as many as possible. Trust me, you go through them super quick. Now with that being said, if you're going to be freehanding your throws, you want to have as many Ultra Balls as possible. It does take a lot of time to build these up though, so I would start restocking right now from Pokestops and then just get as many as possible. Delete Great Balls in favor of Ultra Balls, but if you can't get that many Ultra Balls, then yes, go with Great Balls as the second best option. Next up, let's go over the fast catch trick and the circle lock method. Most of you probably know about these catch tricks by now, especially if you've been like a recurring viewer on the channel, but for any newer players watching this video, I highly recommend learning these tricks to increase your catching speeds and efficiency. Basically, it takes about 18 seconds to catch a Pokemon going through the full animation, but with the fast catch trick, you can do it in roughly 5 seconds. If you want a more in-depth explanation with visual examples of right and left-handed throws, then click the link on screen right now. Next up, we have the circle lock method, which is going to be a way to consistently land more great and excellent throws, which is going to be really beneficial when you're trying to catch those legendary Pokemon. We don't know if the catch rate's going to be increased, and so if it's not, you really want to take advantage of this if possible. You essentially want to hold down the Pokeball to set the circle, wait for the attack animation, and then time your throw so that it lands right as that attack animation finishes. Knowing these tricks are extremely important for an event like this, so if you still haven't mastered them, then check out the video links down below. Now speaking of making your life a little bit easier, I would also recommend getting an Autocatcher if you don't have one already. This is going to be great to run in the background when you're traveling between cluster spawns or when you're busy with something throughout the day, which always tends to happen throughout a big event like this. When it comes down to Autocatchers, there's definitely a lot of different ones you can go with. I would recommend the Pokemon GO++ though, because that can actually auto-catch Pokemon using regular red Pokeballs, and then you can actually use Great and Ultra Balls as well by manually pressing the button. The next thing I want to go over is opening up gifts every single day leading up to this event. This is by far the best way to passively collect Pokeballs and berries if you aren't able to go out and spin Pokestops as often. That being said though, I would strongly recommend putting aside some time to go out there and restock a few days before the event, because you're going to want to have as many Pokeballs as possible going into this. Even with all the prep that I do, I usually reserve some time after the first day to go and restock my bag for day 2. For those of you out there who have a ton of bag space, possibly even close to the limit, you probably don't need to worry about this as much, but for someone like myself who definitely does not have enough bag space, and people out there who probably have even less than I do, you definitely need to make time for this. It's a super important thing. During a big event like this, you also want to typically have a Mega Pokemon active for extra candy bonuses. For newer players out there, we do currently have Mega Tyranitar available in rotation until the 17th. This is going to cover both Rock and Dark type spawns, and then from the 17th up until the end of the Unova Tour, we're going to have Mega Garchomp, which is going to cover Dragon and Ground type spawns. Getting to Mega Level 2 only requires 7 days of Mega Evolution, and it's going to provide you with some extra candy and extra large candy bonuses when catching the applicable typings. That is definitely a doable goal for any newer players watching this right now between now and the event starting, so get grinding on those Pokemon. I think it's going to be absolutely worth it. Now for the more seasoned players out there, hopefully you have been working on getting your Megas to Mega Level 3 because you ideally want to alternate between the habitat rotations based on what you want extra large candy for. Now I do have a quick question for any veteran players watching this right now. If you actually have an idea on which Mega Pokemon is going to be the best, or at least which ones you're planning on using during the event, let us know in the comment section down below. I think during a big event like this, it can always be really difficult to decide on which is going to be the best Mega Pokemon. There's like so many options out there. And so I can always like recommend stuff for newer players, right? It's usually whatever Mega Pokemon is in rotation. And that typically works out, especially like Garchomp being Dragon and Ground type. Dragon is going to cover Reshiram, Zekrom, Kurum. It's going to cover like a lot of the big dogs. But for all the other like habitat spawns, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. Now during this event, we're also going to have access to 6 special trades per day on both March 1st and March 2nd. The best way to take advantage of this is honestly to coordinate with your lucky friends ahead of time in order to get these done throughout the day, figure out where they're going to be playing, and then you can kind of meet up at some point during the day. That's usually the best way to go about this. Now, if you don't have any lucky friends, which I'm sure a lot of you guys out there probably don't, you can also mirror trade shinies with a friend and hope that it goes lucky. If the trade does go lucky, there's a 1 out of 64 chance of actually rolling a hundo this way, which is actually one of the best ways to get a shundo in the game. So if you're not doing your trades, you're definitely missing out for sure. Next up, I want to go over what you want to ideally have in your travel bag. So you're going to be going out there to play for 8 hours, guys. This is not like a typical event. This is a really, really big major event in Pokemon Go. You're going to be grinding for a lot of it, and you know, you want to make sure that you have the right stuff with you. So first of all, I recommend having some quick snacks like protein bars, chips, candy, stuff to keep you energized throughout the day. Also have some pretty good meals, like sandwiches are strongly recommended. I always pack sandwiches, and I think that's a great like meal to eat midday. You do also want to have water bottles. You can bring like a hydro flask, for example, but I do find those tedious to carry throughout the day. You could also have like a water cooler if you brought your car with you and parked nearby. Typically, this is what I do because it's a lot lighter. Like a small water bottle over a hydro flask is definitely going to be preferred, but that's just my own preference. You also want to have external batteries. I usually have at least 2 of these with me personally, and between an entire weekend of Pokemon Go, you may forget to charge one of them the night before, in which case you're going to be glad you had that second one. At least I always am. Now, I don't have any affiliate links, so please make sure to do your own research before purchasing them. I've personally used the Anchor brand for many years, and they've been pretty reliable, so if you're not really sure, just go with that one. Now, of course, paired together with the external batteries, you want to have charging cables. I recommend having at least 2 cables in case one of them stops working midday. This has happened before, and it honestly really sucked, so I mean, never hurts to be more prepared. And then of course you want to have the Autocatcher with extra Autocatcher batteries. It really depends on the Autocatcher that you're going to be using, but extra Autocatcher batteries is super duper important. I mean, again, 16 hours of grind time, you never know when the Autocatcher could just kind of die on you. I'm also going to recommend warm clothing like jackets and typically stuff where you can dress in layers. I mean, if it ends up getting hotter throughout the day, you can always take these off, but if you go out there in like a t-shirt and it ends up being like super cold and windy, then yeah, it's not going to work out super well. So make sure to pack or dress appropriately, I should say. Sunscreen also very, very important. And then finally, spray on deodorant. I mean, especially if you're going to be playing in a car throughout the day, 8 hours is a long time to be in a car, guys. It just makes sense to kind of reapply midday, or at least whenever you feel is necessary. There's a lot of people who don't do this, so I always recommend it because I think there's somebody out there who can probably benefit from it. Now finally, let's go over preparation tips you want to do before day 1 and then also before day 2. I've played through these events for many years, so honestly this is based off my own personal experience, but a lot of it is very applicable. So first of all, you want to find a local player / a local group. Make plans with friends, decide who you're going to play with, where you're going to be playing, all that good stuff. And if you don't actually have a community around you, then I would strongly recommend checking out Campfire for any local meetups. It may be like a little bit of a drive time to go to your closest community, but let me just say this right now, it is absolutely going to be worth it if you play in a group during an event like this. Like, you may even get extra hundos because of that. Trust me, hundo callouts are the best way to actually get hundos in the game, and the only way to do that is to play in a big group of people. I've actually had people who have come back to my videos after taking this advice, and they told me it was like one of the best experiences they actually had. So, I mean, I recommend it, but if you want to play solo, you can totally do that as well. I think during a big event like this, so it's to your advantage to play in a group. Next up, arguably one of the most important things after that is going to be sleep. Get at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep minimum the night before. You're going to be grinding for a long time, and this also includes the following day as well. So getting enough sleep before the first day is, in my opinion, extremely important because you might not get as much sleep before day 2. Keep in mind, you're going to have to go and restock your Pokemon bag, you're going to have to clean out your Pokemon storage, that's going to take you a bit of time, and honestly, during events like this, especially if you're not that organized, you may end up going to bed pretty late. So getting good sleep before day 1 is honestly crucial in my opinion. Now, like I mentioned earlier with the travel bag, we talked about preparing like food, water, snacks, all that good stuff. This is the most cost-effective approach opposed to eating out, but if you wanted to go out somewhere with your friends, then I would recommend mapping out which restaurants actually have Pokestops around them. This way you can actually drop some lure modules and keep passively grinding while you actually eat. It's definitely along the lines of the no XP waste mindset, and so if you really want to make the most out of the event, then definitely plan around it. Otherwise, just, packing lunch, like I said earlier, is the most effective approach. And then finally, we have alarms/reminders. Guys, one of the most important things is to set reminders/alarms to charge your devices and pack your bag before the event. I mean, it is so easy to forget one thing or another, and then your whole day is messed up. So what I personally do is I make a checklist of all the things I need to pack for the day before, all the things I need to charge, etc. And then I set an alarm for the day before, and then once that alarm goes off, I go through that list, I make sure everything is packed in my bag, and then after that I'm pretty much good to go. It's a pretty simple process, but if you aren't organized about this stuff, you're definitely going to forget something the next day. Trust me, it just helps to do everything the night before. So that's going to be all of your prep before day 1, but what about day 2? Well, after playing roughly 8 hours of the event, you're probably going to have caught a ton of Pokemon, so the first thing that you have to do is clean out your Pokemon storage. Figure out which Pokemon you want to keep with good IVs, transfer everything else non-relevant. Ideally, by the end of it, if you followed my method for organization, you should have 0 untagged Pokemon. This is how you know you actually completed everything for that day. And then you can just move on. Now, on top of that, if you want to actually get rid of some more bag space, you should mirror trade your Pokemon with a friend who's also looking to do the same. This is going to be a great way to get rid of any Pokemon you were planning to reroll for good IVs anyways. You can do up to 100 trades per day, and this does include your 6 special trades, so if we minus that, it's going to be 94 more trades. So getting this done as well is honestly going to be really big, and trust me, I'd be surprised if you didn't have like a bunch of Pokemon that you were going to mirror trade after the first day. I always do. And then finally, of course, we have restocking your Pokeballs. Now, hopefully throughout the day you were spending Pokestops along the way and you won't have to restock your bag as much, but if you completely depleted your ball supply, which honestly after 8 hours of playing, that is very much a possibility, you're going to have to spend about at least 1 to 2 hours restocking after the event, maybe a little bit more depending on your grind spot, but trust me, this is extremely important if you want to actually get the most out of day 2. Anyways, that's pretty much all the preparation advice I have for you in terms of the Unova Tour. If you have any more tips and tricks yourself, let us know in the comment section down below. And if you're not really sure how to actually organize your Pokemon storage and manage that efficiently, then I strongly recommend checking out this video next.